The African savanna is a place of breathtaking beauty and brutal truth. It is where life explodes in color and sound, but where a single misstep can mean the end of a very short story. This is the place where we begin our own story, under a merciless sun that turns the red earth into dust. Our focus today is on a hidden, dangerous place within this vast landscape. A network of dry riverbeds and deep ravines carved into the earth over centuries. They are silent traps, waiting for the unwary. Meet Elias. Elias is one of the dedicated rangers who patrols this area every single day. He knows the savanna like the back of his hand, the secret drinking holes, the favorite resting spots of the pride, and the sounds that mean danger. He is a quiet man, his face weathered by the wind and sun, but his eyes are sharp and kind. For Elias, this is more than a job. It is a calling to protect the wild hearts that live here. It was just another routine morning patrol. The air was still, heavy with the scent of acacia and dry grass. Elias was tracking a herd of buffalo when he stopped dead still. His training taught him to listen, not just to what was obvious, but to the silence, to the gaps between the natural noises of the bush. And there, cutting through the stillness, was a sound that made his stomach drop. It was a cry, a thin, reedy, pitiful sound that was far too small for the vastness around it. It wasn't the roar of an adult or the sharp bark of a baboon. It was the unmistakable sound of a baby in absolute terror and distress, a cry that was being quickly swallowed by the air itself. Elias immediately abandoned the buffalo trail and moved towards the sound, his movements careful and quiet. He knew that where there was a cub, there was almost certainly a mother nearby, and a mother lion protecting her young is the most dangerous force on the savanna. He moved with a reverence and caution that only someone who deeply respects the wild can possess. The cry was getting slightly stronger now, but still faint. It was coming from a place he least wanted it to be, near the edge of a great, jagged crack in the earth. This was the Great Ravine, a fissure in the earth up to 20 feet deep in places, overgrown with thick, thorny scrub. It was an almost invisible scar until you were right upon it. It was impossible for an animal to climb out of unaided if they fell in. Dropping to his belly, Elias crawled slowly to the very lip of the ravine. He used his binoculars, scanning the dense foliage and the shadows below, trying to see what was making that heart-wrenching sound. Then he saw him, curled up against a dry, dusty wall of rock, barely visible through the tangled branches, was a tiny lion cub. He was nothing more than a ball of fluff and bones, maybe 4 months old, still covered in his juvenile spots. He was desperately trying to dig his tiny claws into the sheer rock face, attempting to find purchase, attempting to scramble out. With every failed effort, he would slip back down, landing with a soft, defeated thump in the sand. The cub's eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the terror of being utterly alone in a world designed to prey on the weak. He was crying, not with the brave attempt at a roar, but with the sound of pure, childlike despair. It was the sound of a baby who knew his family was gone and his fate was sealed. The exhaustion was visible in his shivering flanks. He had been there a long time. Elias felt a deep, wrenching pain in his chest. This cub was separated from his pride, and in this environment, that meant certain death from starvation, thirst, or another predator within hours. He was too small, too weak, and the walls of the ravine were simply too high. But where was the mother? Elias slowly scanned the surrounding brush, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had to assume the pride was close. They could be watching him right now, hidden in the shadows, waiting for him to make a move. He couldn't risk the cub's life, or his own, by rushing in recklessly. This situation required calm, professional coordination. Before he could even consider a next step, the cub, sensing the presence of the large figure at the top of the cliff, let out the weakest of whines, looking up with big, hopeful eyes. It was a silent plea, a simple cry for rescue. This tiny moment of connection solidified Elias's resolve. He knew he could not leave this cub behind. If you are watching this, you know how much a single moment of hope can change everything. These incredible stories of rescue and second chances are only possible because of viewers like you who support this effort. Please, take a second right now to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It ensures we can keep sharing these emotional, real-life animal tales and fund the very rescues you are about to witness. Your support is the lifeline for animals like this small lion cub. Elias slowly, carefully retrieved his satellite phone from his pack. He retreated a safe distance from the edge of the ravine, ensuring his communications wouldn't spook any lions who might be hiding. The call went straight to the wildlife rescue headquarters. The person who answered was Namusa, the team leader, a woman known for her level head and swift action. Elias briefly but clearly described the scene. A male lion cub, approximately 4 months old, trapped in the Great Ravine. No visual on the rest of the pride. Immediate danger of heat exhaustion. Namusa's voice, always calm, gave him clear instructions. Stay back, Elias. Do not descend. Keep your eyes open for the adults. We are deploying immediately. Dr. Ben is on his way with the vehicle. ETA is 45 minutes, depending on the terrain. Keep talking to me. The next 45 minutes felt like an eternity. Elias found a rocky outcrop where he could maintain watch over the cub without revealing his position or blocking a potential escape route for the mother. He could see the cub below, now lying still, his energy completely spent. The sun was climbing higher, beating down mercilessly. The ravine was becoming a furnace. Every 10 minutes the cub would lift his head and let out another soft, defeated meow, then sink back down. Elias felt the hours stretching out, each one bringing the cub closer to the edge. He imagined the cub's mother, perhaps frantically searching the rim of the canyon just yards away, prevented from reaching her baby by the cruel twist of the earth. The injustice of the situation was unbearable. He spoke softly into the radio, updating Namusa on the cub's condition, the shade, or lack thereof, in the ravine, and the movement of a few vultures beginning to circle lazily far overhead. The vultures were the ultimate sign of the cub's impending doom. Elias chased them off with a wave of his hand and a fierce glare, even though he knew it was a futile gesture. Finally, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon. The sound of a heavy diesel engine, the rumbling of the rescue vehicle, grew louder. Namusa and Dr. Ben had arrived. Dr. Ben, the team veterinarian, was a serious man with gentle hands, carrying a dart gun and a large reinforced transport crate. Namusa immediately took charge, establishing a perimeter. Elias, show me the location. Ben, get your gear ready, but no darts yet. We need a clear assessment of the pride situation first. Elias led them to the ravine's edge. Both Namusa and Dr. Ben silently peered down, their faces grim. The cub looked smaller now, a tragic, defenseless speck at the bottom of the deep crack. Dr. Ben quickly checked the wind direction and the surrounding area one last time for any signs of the mother, sniffing the air for the heavy scent of a lion. Nothing. Silence. An ominous, heavy silence. We have to assume the pride is watching, Namusa stated, her voice low. But we can't wait. He's dehydrated. Ben, what's your assessment of his time remaining? Dr. Ben lowered his sunglasses, focusing intently on the cub. He's weak. He's nearing a state of shock. Maybe an hour before the heat overwhelms him. We have to go in and we have to be quick and quiet. Namusa nodded, turning to the rescue truck. The team pulled out a long, heavy rope, specialized climbing gear, and a soft, sturdy net designed to gently secure animals without harming them. The plan was simple, but dangerous. One rescuer would be lowered into the ravine, secure the cub in the net, and be hauled back up, while Elias and Namusa provided cover. The rescuer going down would be Dr. Ben, due to his veterinary skills and ability to keep the cub calm during the ascent. The weight of the cub's fate settled heavily over the small team. They knew this was the moment of truth. They had to be faster than the sun and faster than the pride. Dr. Ben began strapping himself into the harness, preparing for the perilous descent into the pit where the little lion was waiting, silently praying for a miracle. The soft, sorrowful cries of the cub continued, echoing the urgency of the moment. The rescue was about to begin. Silence descended over the great ravine, heavy and unnatural. The only sounds were the soft, calculated movements of the rescue team and the faint, whimpering cries coming from the depths of the crack. Dr. Ben was now clipped into the main safety line, the rough fibers of the rope digging slightly into his gloves. He carried nothing that could rattle or shine, just a simple, soft-sided net, a small syringe containing a mild sedative, and a deep sense of professional urgency. Namusa stood firm, bracing her feet, ready to manage the primary rope. Elias moved silently 50 yards out, positioning himself on a high dune, binoculars glued to the distant bush, watching for any telltale flick of a tail or the low profile of a hunting lioness. They were relying on pure luck that the mother had not returned yet, or that she was sleeping deeply. But in the savannah, luck is a fleeting commodity. Dr. Ben gave a single, small nod. Namusa began to slowly feed the rope. The descent into the ravine was precarious. The walls were not smooth. They were jagged and treacherous, covered in loose rock and thorny acacia branches that ripped at Dr. Ben's protective suit. He had to use his feet to push away from the wall, controlling his swing, making sure his boots did not dislodge any large rocks that could tumble down onto the helpless cub below. Every inch of movement felt like a mile, every breath held in suspense. Below him, the temperature rose dramatically. The air at the bottom was stagnant, trapping the heat, baking the dust. The small cub, whose name we don't know yet, whose life hangs by a thread, looked up. He didn't roar or snarl. He was too weak for defiance. He simply watched the large figure slowly descending toward him. His ears pinned back, his eyes tracking every movement with a mixture of confusion and overwhelming exhaustion. He had passed the point of panic and was now in a desperate, weary surrender. When Dr. Ben was just 10 feet from the floor of the ravine, he paused, hanging almost motionless. He needed to assess the cub's exact state. The cub was lying completely still now, offering only a barely perceptible lift of his tiny chest with each shallow breath. His fur was matted with dust and sweat. This was not just dehydration, this was heat stroke closing in fast. Gently, Dr. Ben dropped the last few feet. His feet landed silently on the dusty floor. He remained crouched, keeping his profile as small as possible. He spoke, his voice low and rhythmic, using the universal language of calm that animals often understand. "It's all right, little one. We're here now." The cub flinched at the sound, but did not move away. Perhaps the gentle tone, perhaps the sheer heat of the sun, or perhaps a strange primal instinct of survival told him that this large creature was not a threat. Dr. Ben didn't waste a second. The clock was ticking, measured in the cub's fading heartbeat. He pulled out the syringe. Administering a light dose of the sedative was crucial. It wasn't to knock the cub out, but to dull his panic and prevent him from struggling violently during the ascent, which could easily cause him to fall out of the net or cause the entire team to lose their balance above. Moving with practiced, slow deliberation, Dr. Ben held out a gloved hand. He didn't try to touch the cub right away. He simply let the small lion smell his presence, his scent, allowing the cub to accept the nearness. After a moment that felt impossibly long, the cub let out a tiny, almost silent sigh, seeming to accept his fate. Dr. Ben quickly, but with immense care, administered the sedative to the cub's thigh muscle. The cub barely reacted. He was too far gone. Now came the most crucial part, securing the cub. Dr. Ben quickly unfolded the soft woven net, the kind used for safely transporting wildlife. With a swift and efficient motion, he scooped the cub up, tucking him gently into the net, ensuring the cub's head was secure and his small body was supported. The cub was lighter than Dr. Ben expected, a heartbreaking testament to how long he had been without food or water. As Dr. Ben clipped the net and the cub onto his own harness, he felt a strange, electric tension. He realized he was now carrying the cub's weight, the weight of the moment, and the weight of the unseen danger. He looked up, giving the ready signal, 3 short tugs on the rope. Above, Nomusa received the signal. "He's secure. Start the haul," she whispered into her radio. The upward climb was even slower and more grueling than the descent. Nomusa had to pull with measured, constant strength, while Dr. Ben used his feet to guide their swinging bodies away from the jagged edges of the rock. The cub, now slightly sedated, rested against Dr. Ben's chest, a small, warm weight against the rescuer's ribs. It was an intimate, life-or-death embrace between man and wild beast. Suddenly, a dry branch snapped in the distance. Elias, still watching the perimeter, froze. The sound was too close to be wind. It was the sound of a heavy body shifting, a foot misplaced. His breath caught in his throat. He immediately radioed the warning, his voice tight with controlled alarm. "Movement! 200 meters, Acacia Grove. Be ready, Nomusa. Speed up." Nomusa heard the warning. Her face hardened, but her eyes never left the rope. She didn't panic, she just dug her heels in harder, pulling with a fierce, almost superhuman effort. Every muscle in her arms and back screamed in protest, but she ignored the pain, focused only on the slow, inch-by-inch ascent of Dr. Ben and the precious cargo in his arms. The risk of the mother lion returning now, seeing her baby being lifted by humans, was terrifyingly real. A confrontation would be fatal for them and for the cub. They were nearly there. Dr. Ben's head cleared the rim. Nomusa grabbed his harness, hauling him the final foot over the edge onto the flat, safe earth. As soon as he was down, Nomusa released the rope, and they both immediately turned their attention to the cub. He was pale, his breathing shallow. Dr. Ben unclipped the net and gently placed the tiny lion on a clean, soft blanket on the ground. The first priority was not transport, but stabilization. Dr. Ben wasted no time. He gently checked the cub's gums, which were dry and tacky, a clear sign of severe dehydration. He prepared an intravenous line, a small butterfly needle, and with the delicate skill of a true professional, inserted it into the cub's vein. The first drops of life-saving saline solution began to flow into the little lion's system. This is the kind of raw, uncompromising moment that defines rescue work. It is where human compassion meets the harsh reality of the wild. If you have been moved by the incredible bravery of this team and the little cub's fight for life, take a moment now to help us share this story. Hit that subscribe button and tap the like button on this video. Your support is crucial. It helps us keep these vital rescue teams in the field, ready to answer the next desperate cry for help. Don't wait. Become a part of this story right now. With the IV drip set up, the cub's vitals were monitored. His heart rate was weak but steady. The cool fluids beginning to circulate in his veins would quickly bring his core temperature down and replace the lost volume. Nomusa and Elias stood watch, flanking Dr. Ben, their rifles ready, their gaze fixed on the dense bush where Elias had seen movement. The tension was still high, perhaps higher now because they had the cub, and that made them a target. "We need to move him now," Dr. Ben stated, not looking up from his work. "We can't risk the entire pride coming back. I need to get him into the temperature-controlled transport where I can monitor him more closely." Nomusa nodded, motioning for Elias to keep watch. They quickly but gently transferred the cub, still bundled in the soft net and blanket, into a specially designed, reinforced transport crate inside the rescue vehicle. The crate was quiet, shaded, and secured against the movements of the rough journey ahead. Just as Nomusa was closing the vehicle door, Elias lowered his binoculars, his expression one of heavy concern. He pointed silently toward a clump of tall grass, roughly where he had spotted the earlier movement. There, pressed into the dust, were fresh, unmistakable tracks. Not from the male, but from a large lioness. She had been close, very, very close. She had been watching the entire rescue, hidden in the shadows, paralyzed perhaps by fear of the large machines, or by the human figures, or perhaps waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Namusa understood immediately. The mother was alive. She knew exactly where her cub had gone. This created a new, terrifying urgency. The team had to get out of the area fast before the lioness grew bold enough to follow or charge. Dr. Yi then secured the IV bag to the ceiling of the transport box, ensuring the saline could continue to drip even as they bounced over the rough terrain. Namusa jumped into the driver's seat, engine already running. Elias climbed into the passenger seat, taking one last sweep of the savannah with his binoculars. The great, empty ravine stood silent once more, but the air felt charged. The rescue of the cub from the pit was complete, but the escape from the mother's territory was only just beginning. Namusa gripped the steering wheel, and with a roar of the engine that was quickly muted by the vastness of the savannah, the rescue team drove away, racing the sun and racing a mother's fierce protective instinct. The little lion cub, now safe inside the vehicle, had fought his first battle and won a temporary reprieve. But his journey back to health and the mystery of his future was far from over. The journey back to the sanctuary clinic was long and rough, a blur of dust and adrenaline. Namusa drove with fierce determination, her eyes constantly scanning the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the furious shape of the mother lioness charging across the open plains. Elias, sitting shotgun, kept his hand near his radio, reporting their status and watching the perimeter. In the back, Dr. Ben worked tirelessly. The small lion cub, still heavily sedated, was receiving continuous treatment. Dr. Ben called him Tariq, a simple name meaning evening visitor, perhaps because he had arrived into their care at the end of a long, desperate day. Tariq was fragile, his tiny body trembling occasionally, but the continuous flow of fluids was doing its life-saving work. The cub's pale gums slowly began to return to a healthier pink. When they finally reached the wildlife sanctuary, the sun was setting, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. They quickly moved Tariq into a specialized sterile recovery unit. The small cub was placed in a quiet, warm enclosure designed to mimic the secure, hidden den a mother would choose. For the first time in what must have felt like an age, Tariq was truly safe. The rescue team, Namusa, Elias, and Dr. Ben, stayed with him through the night. They took shifts, watching Tariq's shallow breaths, noting the slow, steady improvement in his color and responsiveness. It was a silent vigil, marked only by the gentle drip, drip, drip of the IV bag. By the next morning, the change was remarkable. When Dr. Ben approached the enclosure, Tariq lifted his head. He was still weak, but his eyes were bright, filled with a spark of alertness that hadn't been there before. He attempted a low, gravelly growl, a sound that was more endearing than threatening. It was the sound of a lion deciding that perhaps he wasn't going to die after all. For the next few days, Tariq was showered with the best possible care. He was gradually weaned off the IV fluids and introduced to a specialized milk formula, delivered by a dedicated team of caretakers. He gained strength rapidly. The skinny, dust-covered kitten who had cried hopelessly in the ravine was replaced by a small, curious, and increasingly cheeky lion cub. He learned to trust the gentle hands of Dr. Ben, who would spend time with him, checking his weight and playing small, slow games designed to stimulate his natural instincts. Tariq's personality began to shine through. He was playful, mischievous, and possessed that inherent clumsy grace that defines all young lions. He would bat playfully at a hanging rope or pounce on a blanket, practicing the hunting skills his mother should have been teaching him in the tall grass. But with Tariq's recovery came a difficult, sobering question that all rescue teams face. What now? A wild lion cub, raised by humans, cannot simply be released back into the savannah. Tariq had lost the critical time needed to learn survival skills from his pride. He didn't know how to hunt, how to fear humans, or how to navigate the complex social rules of a lion pride. Releasing him directly would be sentencing him to a slower but equally certain death. The team, led by Namusa, discussed every possible option. They consulted with other conservationists across the continent. The goal was always Tariq's long-term well-being and, if possible, his return to the wild in some capacity. They had to choose a future that allowed Tariq to live like a lion, not a pet. Ultimately, they made a profound, heart-wrenching decision. Tariq would be transferred to a specialized, large, protected reserve, a kind of intermediate wild. This reserve housed other rescue lions, cubs, and adolescents who had also been separated from their mothers due to poaching or accidents. In this massive, wild-like environment, protected from outside threats, Tariq would have the chance to bond with other young lions and learn the ways of the pride, finding his own version of a family. He would learn to hunt smaller prey in a controlled, natural setting, allowing his powerful instincts to guide him. The day of Tariq's transfer was emotional for everyone. Elias, who had first heard that faint cry, watched as the robust, healthy cub was loaded into a new, larger transport crate. He was no longer crying. He was simply curious, looking out at the familiar faces of his human protectors. Dr. Ben knelt beside the crate, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Be strong, little one," he murmured. "You have the heart of a survivor. Go find your future." Tariq let out a small, almost confident roar, a real one this time, full of promise. It was his farewell. The team watched as the transport truck disappeared down the dusty road, carrying Tariq toward his second chance at a wild life. It was a bittersweet moment. They had saved him, nursed him back from the brink, but now they had to let him go, trusting in his resilience and the power of nature. The story of Tariq, the baby lion trapped in the Great Ravine, is a powerful reminder. It tells us that even in the most brutal environments, moments of profound human compassion can change the ending of a tragedy. It shows the dedication of people like Elias, Namusa, and Dr. Ben, who risk everything to give a voice to the defenseless. Tariq's journey continues in his new reserve, surrounded by others like him, slowly growing into the magnificent animal he was always meant to be. He is a living symbol of hope, a powerful reminder that every life, no matter how small, is worth the fight. And every time a truck leaves the clinic, heading back out to the savannah, the team knows they are ready to answer the next faint, desperate cry for help, guided by the memory of the little lion who cried for help and who, against all odds, was finally found.